to Sad Dad Games podcast. We are going to be finishing the backlog of Clair Obscur Expedition 33, and we're going to be deconstructing the theme and just kind of doing an open discussion. We are your hosts, Shan,
Eric,
Tucker,
and Lundy.
This is our 7th episode.
Sixth.
7.
Is it?
This is the 6th one. Yeah.
No, this is part 7.
I don't know. I haven't been
I
counting.
have only made 6 thumbnails, so
Okay.
yeah.
Well, then I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see when we post it, because I'm pretty sure it's 7.
Just dub over
Anyway.
whatever it is, and make it
Yeah,
really
well,
obvious.
Everybody shut up. I'm going to check right now.
It doesn't really matter.
On this one. I think
So
Ready to
as far
feel
as the lore
silly.
backlog, where I'm going to start with this is the first question I had is when we get to the beach after launching from Lumiere, who was it that saved Maiel and disappeared her and left a note at the indigo tree? Lundy, do you want to jump in? Because
Yeah,
you knew.
it's Verso. Yeah, you don't recognize him on your first playthrough because you don't even know who he is yet.
And
you
he's
can
like
see kind
blurred
of
with a Gaussian blur. So
Yeah.
you can't really tell at first.
you can't super tell, but he's kind of got that fur collar cape thing. You can see when he's bending over to take Maiel away.
Right. So explain to us how this works story-wise. What is he trying to accomplish here? So we have Renoir. He's trying to murder everybody. So what is Verso trying to accomplish here?
So when you are, it's in the conversation when you max out the relationship level with Maiel, as Verso later on, in Act 3, and he talks about, they're kind of reminiscing, she's remembering who she is now as Alicia, and her family members, and obviously this is painted Verso, and he brings up that he's only met Clair a handful of times. He was part of the first expedition, Expedition
I think
0.
3 times.
Yeah. And so they go, and she stops them at the barrier and just explains everything, basically tells all of the Expedition 0, hey, you guys are fake, like you're painted, I'm, from the outside, I helped paint this, whatever. And, kills a bunch of them because they don't turn back. And then I'm trying to remember when he said the second time was.
I think it was at the 16-year mark or something.
That's the last time that he saw Clair,
Oh,
yeah.
that's
was
the last time. Okay.
16 years before the game takes place, because that's when Alicia is born as Maiel in there. But she comes back and approaches Painted Verso and basically asks him to keep an eye on Maiel, and watch over her, basically keep her safe while Clair goes and does all of her stuff in the outside world. Just making sure that, her younger sister's taken care of. And so it's during that conversation that he says, I've kind of kept an eye on you ever since. I've kept my distance, but, he took her from the beach. He killed some of the Nevrons that were, bigger and more dangerous. And as a result, that's kind of what leads her to ask if he could have saved Gustav. And when we as the player learn that, whether he says yes or no, he could have and chose not to.
That part stung more than like almost any other part of the game. And I was really starting to warm up to Verso, and that was a tough pill to swallow. That it's like, I understand, like, knowing the end game why Verso did that, but like, ooh, I didn't like that. That was a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah, the reason was to extricate the paintress or their mom from the painting itself. And Alicia, or Maiel, is seemingly okay with it, even though it's difficult because of Gustav. But as the player, that's not okay, because Gustav is probably the best character in the entire game. So should we be on Maiel's side because she's okay with it, or should we hate Verso again?
Right? I don't know. Like,
I don't know.
Well, and to your point, not Verso. Gustav is arguably probably morally the least gray character in this game. He's the most cut and dry. Like, he's a good person trying to do good things.
He's the moral anchor.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was the like, I'm not gray on this point. As soon as I learned this, because it was my second playthrough when I learned that detail that he let Gustav die. Before I was like, I don't know, I see both of their points in these endings, and as soon as I learned that, I was like, nope, Verso's wrong. I hate him. Like,
Screw that guy.
Maiel's
Verso
ending.
needs to be kept alive forever. She needs to puppet him for eternity.
He deserves that. Yeah. So yeah.
You kill Charlie Cox and you incur Lundy's wrath forever.
All right. So speaking to this point, there's also another moment when you first find the manor in Flying Waters where you get sucked into it and the camera pulls back slightly and we see behind somebody's back. This is also Verso because he's spying on them at random points. So that's another random moment. There's another moment where we meet Go Blue, one of the bosses, and this is the one with the flower. Gustav touches. Wait, is it Gustav or is it Lune? Maybe
It's
that
Gustav touches the flower. I'm pretty sure because I remember
because
it gave me. Yeah, it gave me a Flower Blight Ganon memory from like Breath of the Wild. I think I brought that up in the previous episode where he doesn't get mad until you touch his flower.
Yeah. So touching this flower makes Go Blue jump out of nowhere and attack them. And after attacking, Maiel says this enemy felt familiar. So the reason it felt familiar is because Clair had painted this character and the painting is inside of the manor somewhere. And if I had to look this up because I personally hadn't found it, but this painting of Go Blue is next to what I believe is the only painting that Alicia had that had deserved to be hung up in the manor because nothing else had deserved to be hung up. So there's that familiarity. She's like, I remember seeing Go Blue because I was often looking at the only thing I had that deserved to be hung up. So that kind of explains why she said that at that time.
Yeah, there's so many little moments that you just don't catch the first time through. Like, this is all news to me, so.
I mean, there's a lot that, like I'm still finding new things tucked away. I'm sure that I haven't even, there's probably things that I saw or experienced that it just didn't click for whatever reason. One of my favorite little nuggets that I found recently is in one of the rooms, I want to say it's like, I don't know if it's Alicia's room or not, but there's one of the rooms that has kind of almost like a closet side tucked away, and when you go in there, it's basically an empty room, but there's a desk with a typewriter on it. And, I assume that that's like alluding to how the writers started to kind of manipulate and use Alicia and ultimately end up burning the manor and killing Verso.
Yeah, maybe that means that Alicia had written the fire into existence and burning the manor because the typewriter is there. I could see that. Because the typewriter is in the building. Okay, something to stew on. Yeah, I have some other notes here about not Easter eggs per se, but just some things that I liked about the story. So Gustav talking about losing Sophie and being lost, and he's talking about this with Maiel and ruminating with her. I felt like this what structurally was transferring the momentum of his pain to Maiel, because after this, Maiel takes the mantle of protagonist or dual protagonist, and we had decided that the reason that this works structurally is because we had suffered loss of Sophie, and we had to then, and the reason that it worked to then adopt her as the protagonist is because then Gustav is the one that we lose from her, and so we take the loss and then we take the momentum through her and we keep going. If we had just had loss and then just swapped out the character, it felt like that would have meant less because that character just ends up getting tossed aside. So I felt like this conversation where they're sharing the loss and what it meant between them, and that it was similar, it felt like they were transferring it.
Yeah, at very first, like when Verso first pops up in the party, I did kind of feel like Gustav died, and it's like, oh well, but we need a fourth party member, so here's this other guy. Like that's what it kind of felt like at first, and then later on you find out how important, like Verso is so important to the story, and it was, it makes more sense in retrospect. But for the first little bit there, I was like, I don't know about this. I don't know about this guy, which I think is what the game wants you to feel. So
another fun story moment for me, Verso tries to say losing family is difficult to Maiel, and this is supposed to be about Gustav, but the beautiful part of this story is that he's actually talking about losing himself to Maiel. So just great storytelling. He gets to kind of talk about himself dying and how painful that was to Maiel. Let's see, Noko dying. They mention how he will reincarnate, but it won't be the same Noko. It will, and so I felt like this was a proxy for fake Verso, and so it's making an argument for how fake Verso being in the painting, he will be there, but it won't be the same Verso. And so it's saying, if you have Verso in the painting, is it really the same him? So does it so it's kind of setting up the final argument of, should you continue in this lie because it's not really the real Verso?
Yeah, no, I think I hadn't considered that before, but I like the them using Noko as that, because I thought that was an interesting story beat. It was like, he's reincarnated, but he's not quite the same. So it's like he's technically back, but he's lost all or most of his memories, and you see how that emotionally affects Monoko. And also you find out that Noko was Monoko's mentor, which I thought it was his son or his child. And so to find out that that was the person who kind of raised Monoko and trained him and whatever, that was an interesting kind of a flip that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah. And then last one that I have personally is, who is the kid in Alicia's ending? And I think it's the Faceless boy. That's the most obvious answer. But so this would be young Verso, the kid who was painting endlessly. So there's the line right after Verso is, I don't want this, please let me, he's like, let me die. And right after that, she has a voiceover where she's like, if you could grow old, would you find a reason to smile? Then, like a minute after that, we're in this building where everybody's putting on a theater for her to keep her happy, and she's kind of cosmically controlling everybody, and she is holding this little boy's hand. So I believe this is young Verso, and then we have old Verso that she's controlling and has but I think she's brought this young boy back to life. He's no longer stuck in this endless loop painting the world, because she's taking on the role of painting and controlling the world, and she is allowing him to live on. Like, is this making sense? Does this check out for everyone? She's taken the boy that was painting the world, and she's now controlling the world.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Did she tell him to stop painting after she defeated Verso, like the little boy? I don't remember.
I don't think she did. Verso does in his ending, but I don't think Maiel did. But I just assumed that it was one of Gustav's apprentices, so I didn't think too much about it. I just was like, "Oh yeah, one of the kids." I
probably assumed the same,
because when they come back from killing the paintress, she hands Gustav's journal, and then he gets all sad and runs away, and I just assumed it was like the same kid. But
my other guess was, so I had seen speculation out there it was one of his apprentices. The other guess was maybe it was she had painted an idealistic young child to be Sophie and Gustav's child, because they never got to have a child, and she is building out a fake reality where everything is fake.
The perfectly happy ending, cookie cutter everything. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I think with the voiceover of, if you could grow old, would you find a reason to smile, is kind of leading to the possibility of this being dead Verso living out a fake real life in the canvas. But I don't know. That was just my favorite option personally.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I like about this is it kind of leaves it open where to consider and be like, what does that mean? And maybe they'll answer later. Maybe we'll never know.
And I did find a video where they were exploring these options, and this boy didn't perfectly match any of the apprentices. And so that leads to, but it did look similar to them. It just didn't match them perfectly. So it could still be one of them. Anyway, so those were the things I wanted to share, but I know that all of you have other favorite lore because you've played more of the optional content, so feel free to share.
I mean, I had a couple little things. One of them is kind of a big thing that I'm sure we'll have lots to talk about, but there was something that occurred to me just now while we were talking, when we were talking about the typewriter in Alicia's room, and it made me think about, like, I wonder if she got that typewriter from the writers, and if they were able to entice her because of the loss of her voice with the ability to write and like use words that, oh no, that doesn't, the timeline doesn't add up, because she lost her voice in the fire, so she would have had the typewriter before. So never mind.
In a manor.
But that is, I mean, we know that's a motivating factor for her, because when she's in the painting, she has a voice, and that's like a big argument for, she's not disfigured, she has a voice. That's a big argument for why she wants to stay there. So that, never mind. That theory was wrong. I disproved it while I was just talking out loud. But I also realized something adorable while I was listening to the soundtrack the other day. Minoko's song, which is a fantastic song, but I love that we realize that he's kind of like a proxy for the Dessandra's dog, Verso's dog, like in real life. And his song starts with like a bow wow, bow bow wow, and then
wow,
it's just straight up like a dog sound. I like listened to it again and I was like, oh my gosh, they're just straight up saying bow wow, like here is a dog.
Eric, that's my favorite thing so far.
I know, right?
Yeah,
listening to soundtracks over and over again, you get things, you know.
Never put that together. Like, I've listened to that song a ton and know, you know, that exact sound, and just never once even thought like, oh yeah, because it's the dog.
I just love that.
But thinking of the dog thing though, like one of the, I mean, I like the interpretations that you guys said about, you know, Noko being reincarnated and stuff like that, you know, just what that meant. I think you guys are right in your interpretation of it. One of the things that I had thought of, that's probably not right, but I still was like, you know, like kind of what I equated it to is because Minoko is the dog, and he talks about how, you know, just the process of gestural reincarnation, how they come back, but it's not the same. It kind of, you know, it's like when you're growing up with the dog, you know, like families will have a dog, that dog will pass away, they'll get another dog of the same breed, and it's like, so it's the same dog, but it's different. You know, like it's its own unique thing each time. And, you know, so it's like there's that continuity of companionship, but the personality is never the same. And so, like, yeah, I don't know if that's
Tucker,
the intention behind it, but
you've seen the rehearsal season 2.
Yeah.
Has anybody else?
No.
Okay, so has anybody seen the rehearsal with Nathan Fielder?
I haven't seen it. I'm
this
familiar
guy,
with it, but
this guy is one of the greatest geniuses in Hollywood right now. And so the idea of the rehearsal is this guy straight up has autism, but he doesn't know it, or he didn't realize it up until this season, but is still in open denial about it. Anyway, so this season there's an episode where he wants to see if he can train a cloned dog to become the identical in behavior to a dog that previously existed, by putting it through the exact same lived experiences as the other dog, by recreating one-to-one the lived experiences, one-to-one apartment setting with so he goes out and he buys like the same TV, the same sofa. He does all the same behaviors of like same clothing of the people that lived there, the same routines and everything, because he believes rigidly that it's nurture over nature.
That
yes.
is so I have a little brother who is autistic, and that is the most autistic way of looking at like training behavior that I've ever heard in my life. Because it's just like for people who have autism, generally social cues and like things and understanding like how things work socially, it doesn't work for them the same way that it works for neurotypical people. And so for them to be like, all right, A plus B equals C, this behavior equals this outcome. It's like, for example, I can see my little brother sometimes when like he knows that he's supposed to smile. He'll like someone says something and he's like, oh, I'm supposed to smile. And it's like, you can see the gears turning in his head. He's like, all right, now run smile.exe. And he'll like, and then he stops. Like, and it's just like, there's this like watching patterns and understanding social norms and recreating them, even though they're not something that like comes naturally to an autistic person. And so for him to be like, yeah, if I recreate the exact same environment, it'll turn into the exact same dog. A plus B equals C, always, every time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the entire premise of the rehearsal is he's trying to model out any given scenario that because he's trying to figure out if under test conditions he can elicit behavior that he wants, so that he's trying to create test conditions for behavior he wants to create in the real world. And and so he's a study of human behavior, essentially. The point is that it is the greatest television I have ever seen. And I have never
Shan has seen a lot of television.
Yeah, I have never laughed to tears before as I have in this show. I think both seasons, but especially this season. Is that correct, Tucker?
Yeah. There's one specific scene in...
yes.
Yeah, Shan knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Where I had to pause the show because I was laughing so ridiculously hard.
Wait a minute, what's
the
it called?
baby episode?
The rehearsal.
The rehearsal.
You're talking about the baby episode?
Yep, the baby episode. Of just when he comes out and it's just a hard cut from him being normal to this scene, and it is just fantastic.
I couldn't breathe. I honestly thought that I was going to asphyxiate on laughter.
Yeah, I'm going to see if I can.
It is must-watch television. All right.
And
everybody shut up while I do this. I'm going to check out for a minute.
You need to do
Nathan for you, too.
Nathan for you is also...
Oh, I have seen some clips of Nathan for you. Oh, I know the guy you're talking about now. He just like...
He's just super deadpan all the time. Yeah.
Yes, because he's autistic.
Yeah.
He is one of the greatest genius writers of our time. Anyway, back to what we were talking about, though. So, Expedition 33. Any other fantastic lore that we want to share? Easter eggs?
I have some more things, but I want to give someone else an opportunity to jump in if they have something they want to talk about first. No? Great. All right. So,
No, I mean, we haven't really talked about Simon at all. I think maybe it's probably just Lumbee and I that have done or tried to beat Simon, because it is the hardest boss in the game by...
I don't even know who the F that is.
It's basically the Sephiroth of this game. Like,
oh man,
go.
Oh yeah, so Simon, you find out, was I think part of the first expedition with Renoir and Verso, and so there's an area called Renoir's Depths. Is that right?
Drafts, I think. Yeah, it's
or drafts. Yeah. Anyway, so it's only accessible once you unlock SK's ability to go underwater, and I think this is probably the only area that you actually do that in. But super fun.
Oh yeah,
area.
so I went into that area for like 1 second. It was like danger, and then I went in and I looked around and I was like, nah.
That's too much danger.
When we talk about the danger tag on things, it is
super handy.
You need to listen to the danger thing. It's not like, oh, well, I can make it work. No, you're gonna die.
No, yeah.
But anyway, so you get there and you go through this kind of gauntlet of like very high level enemies. There's, I think, 3 or 4 creatures. So like the kind of ball that kind of looks like a dog with a bunch of body parts that you fight before you hit Renoir. And the
giant booger monsters. Yeah.
Giant. Yeah. And anyway, then you get to this area called the Abyss, and it's just this super dark area. And yeah, you come across Simon, who is a Sephiroth, has a giant sword, and
they have long, beautiful hair, and
yes, he does,
and a beautiful anime boy face. Yeah,
and he
piercing
just
eyes,
the piss out of you immediately. So yeah, like I went in with my full my geared up, main party, about to think I'm gonna kick some butt, and then he just disappears you. And then I'm stuck with half leveled up characters.
Yeah. The strategy.
Wait. Go back. He disappears you, and you're stuck with half leveled up characters. What does that mean?
Oh, so like, okay, so
like your D tier, your backup party. I see what you're saying.
My
I was like, has he taken levels away from you?
No, my D.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, so it's just like it's parrying and dodging, and it's just the attack patterns are tough to get down. And then it just he has 3 different phases, and he just is like, all right, and you're gone. And that's it. There's no counter to it. You can't parry it. It's just you're gone.
Yep. It's just a one hit. Your whole entire party is dead, and now you have to use your backups.
Ugh.
And that's the final third of the fight is you have to use your backups. There's no other option.
He grabs your dick and he chops your whole body off.
Yeah.
And you gotta fight with just your wiener.
Old dick twist.
Yes, so, that old trope. Yeah.
Yeah. So this area is where Renoir was trapped. Like we hear about Renoir being trapped underneath the monolith.
I was wondering what that was about. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But. Anyway.
Well, it's not a proper JRPG if there isn't at least one unreasonably difficult boss. You got to have that. It's a staple of the genre.
He's got just crazy attacks. Like at some point, he'll swing his sword, but there's also the spiritual version of it basically right behind. And so he hits you, and then the shadow of his sword that where it used to be also hits you, and you have to dodge or parry, and it's just real hard.
He swings it so fast that it's the shockwave that comes after the actual blade.
Basically.
It's like a mantis shrimp.
Also,
you guys, I'm gonna take a second to rave about mantis shrimps. Do you know about mantis shrimps? Have you guys ever heard this? Have I told you this before? Okay. Well, I'm gonna say it anyways for all of the people listening at home. Mantis shrimps are badass. Did you know that they have the fastest punch in the animal kingdom out of any animal? These little shrimps. They're super crazy colorful. They look like weird clowns, and they have their mantis arms, and they've got little balled up things at the end of them, and they go like this, poof, and they punch super fast. But they punch so fast that as their little fist is moving forward, it generates a little pocket of air behind their hand, which wasn't there before. That it's like a little tiny sonic boom that moves so fast that it generates light and heat. That's how fast they punch. Is it creates a little air bubble of hot light behind their hands. So there you go. Fun fact about mantis shrimp for you. Fastest punch in the animal kingdom. Super weird animals. What were we talking about?
Had a lined up joke after that, but I didn't. All right. Yeah.
One other thing.
Any other things about lore?
Well, and Tucker can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think that one other thing with Simon, because in the background while you fight him, there's a bunch of the big, giant, kind of gold swords that you see in Old Lumiere.
Oh.
And basically, Simon is the one that killed that Axon.
The Clair Axon?
The Clair Axon.
Oh, I was wondering if they'd ever explain that.
Yeah. I believe the explanation, and I don't know this because I haven't finished with all of the Simon stuff yet, because I'm just not good enough. But I believe that, the explanation is that, Clair hated the Axon and sent Simon to go kill it. And I could be making that up, but I don't know. So
it painted me weird. You would take care of this for me? Yeah.
Yeah. So I know that Clair does hate a lot of the stuff in there. Like, you can find in the floating manor, which is another one of the levels. The boss there is painted Clair, and so she does have a painted version of herself that is in the canvas, just like the rest of the family did. But they mentioned that she hated her painted version so much that she painted over it, and so when you see it, it's like all like black and white and inverted colors and stuff like that.
Chromatic.
Weird.
Kind of. Yeah.
I think I saw a chromatic. Go Blue there was a character.
Yeah. So basically, every Nevron has like a chromatic version of it that's like a boss that's a lot harder.
Okay.
And some of them have like weird tricks. Some of them just attack for forever. There's the one, I forget exactly whichever Nevron has like the arms, just like that they hit you with, like that they're carrying like a dead.
Dance up with you, and then they go.
Oh yeah.
And they hit you with an arm that they're carrying,
like an extra arm that they. Yeah.
The chromatic version of that one, it never lets you have a turn. Like, it automatically just always like rewinds time to be its turn again, and so the only way to beat it is by parrying its attacks. And
I came across one of those.
Yeah, once you parry it enough, then it breaks it, and then you can actually finally have a turn. But
there's one of those, like I don't remember which area it's in, but it's slightly off the beaten path, but it's part of like the sort of on the path of the critical mission, but it's a little off to the side. But yeah, I fought one of those, and for the first little while I was like, what is going on? This dude has taken like 10 turns.
Yep.
The painted Clair is also a pretty tough boss.
So hard.
Tough as Simon, but she just
so hard.
Cool. I didn't know there was so much more to explore. I mean, I knew there was so much more to explore, but there's so much cool story stuff. I kind of thought that it would just be extra bits and bobs here and there, but it's like that's really cool.
Yeah, they really reward you for exploring the world, which is very cool. It doesn't feel like side content.
Yeah. The area, speaking of side content, because they have announced that there's more content coming as a thank you for all of the sales that they've had. There's speculation about where that's going to be, and I think that it makes sense. There's an area called the Endless Tower, and when you go in there, you can kind of see the shadow version of Clair talking. She's like, let's run the trials like we used to or whatever. And there's just kind of a big like picture, and you go in there, and there's 11 phases that have 3 like trials each, so that you get 33 trials. But basically they're fights that you just fight your way through until you complete it all. But there's like stairs and things behind that with other like canvases and doorways and stuff that are kind of like red light like blocked, and so it looks like there's areas that can be added on there where it's like, okay, you can go in here now and explore this, but that just haven't been built in yet. So I think that's probably where those it's
a pretty big area for one little picture frame that's at the very front when you enter the level.
It very much feels like that's where they're going to plug in any and all future editions. They'll get just popped in right there.
It looked like there was maybe a lot of places where they had to take out content, maybe due to lack of time. And so maybe just putting that content back in would be great.
Yeah. But there's a lot of bosses. You can always tell, too, the boss fights that they feel the most proud about, because those are the ones that you... like... Lamp Master, you can fight Lamp Master in a bunch of different areas, and the Duelist as well. You fight him a few times.
That was a cool fight.
Yeah,
I really like the Duelist.
And so you can tell that it's like, okay, they were proud of this one, and they were like, you know what, a lot of work went into this. Like, I don't want it to just be this one part of the game. Let's make it an optional boss over here and an optional boss over there, and I mean, even Golgra, you have to fight. There's a few different options for fighting Golgra, the hardest of which is like in the gestural village itself.
One hit.
Oh, yeah, she didn't mess around.
She's I love fighting her at the end of Minoko's story when you're resurrecting Noko, when she shows up and she's like, you're cutting to the front of the line, like there's a whole process, and he's defiant, and Verso says something, he's like, if you want, I'll just
participate.
Yeah. It's like, do I have to? And Minoko's just like, please help me. Like, no, like,
I don't want to have to fight her alone. Please help. Yeah.
He's talking this tough game, but as soon as it's just him and Verso, he's like, you want me to start? He's like, please help me. Like, I need all the help I can get.
Don't leave.
But,
all right. Are we done with lore?
Well, I wanted to talk one more really quick about, there is a little, like, the last conversation we have with CL at the campfire. Did we touch on this last time? I don't think that we did.
I don't think so, yeah.
But I had I'm glad you're bringing this, because that's what I wanted.
I figured Lundy would have lots of notes, because this is a really beautiful, awesome conversation is between SGA and CL. So you find out that CL talking to Verso that so first, I guess it starts with CL and Verso have a conversation. We didn't talk about their last conversation, I think, where CL is so distraught over the loss of Pierre, her husband, who didn't die in a gomage, but was died in an accident. And so she tries to cope with it for a while, but just can't, and then just goes out into the sea and swims as far as she can, thinking that she'll just drown herself or whatever. And then she, swims until she can't swim anymore, falls asleep in the ocean or whatever, and then wakes up on the shore and realizes that she was pregnant with Pierre's child, but lost the baby because of that swimming thing, that she was saved but lost that baby. And so in trying to alleviate her pain, she lost the last piece of Pierre that she had, which is a hugely devastating thing. And then they kind of have this little moment where she's like, see, that was a very dark and personal story. And then they kind of, they chat about it again. But it's just this big revealing moment for CL where you realize why she doesn't like to swim and why she doesn't like the water, and just how is she able to be optimistic and positive at all with something so horrible like that happen. And I like that this game doesn't ever shy away from those really heavy topics, because they're meaningful for these characters and they're realistic for characters like this who are in such a bleak and unforgiving world. And so I thought it was a really touching story. And there's more to it when she talks to SK, but they're that part of it is just really, it's hard to get that from her and feel that from her. It's
SK saves her.
Yeah.
And that's love it.
I feel like as well, one of the things that I think kind of adds to the just the constant grief that she, because CL's so interesting where it's, she's always talking, death is a friend. She's got this dark side, but also this really caring, nurturing side to her. And she mentions, because, her and Verso kind of have been having this fling the whole time, and she kind of ends it because she's like, look, Maiel can paint everybody back. She can bring back Pierre. So I don't really need you anymore, Verso. She kind of breaks things off.
We got to end the thing. Yeah.
But she also brings up that she's like, how do I tell Pierre that I lost our child? She's still feeling that guilt, even though it's Maiel's going to bring back Pierre. She could bring back the child as well. But she still feels that guilt, just knowing that things can be undone doesn't mean that she forgives herself. Maiel can undo things, but she feels like she can't undo those things, but she's just such an interesting character with this really tragic story, and that I love. It's so beautifully written and so beautifully told. And then, the conversation that she has with SGA after, just wonderful.
The conversation with SGA starts in in typical wonderful SGA nonsense, where CL she asks him, how did you recognize me? And why did you say it was the second time that we met? And then SGA responds, well, first means number one, second means number two. Just thinking that she didn't understand numbers. She's like, when we met, why did you say it was the second time? And SGA is just because it's the second time I met you, stupid. First means number one, and second means number 2. But then you find out that as they talk that Eskia, like Shan said, was the one that saved her. She swims out there, and Eskia was the one that brought her back to shore. He just saw her and brought her back and saved her life. And so when they meet for the first time, for the second time, I guess, and Eskia goes, well, hello, my bad swimming friend, or whatever like that. And at first, like, that doesn't make any sense. But now it's like, oh, Eskia saved her, and that's why he's been calling her, the bad swimming, or the friend who's afraid of swimming, or whatever. And it's like, I love that the developers and these storytellers are setting up these little things that make no sense at the time, but then after like a whole game's worth of context, you're like, oh, I get what they meant by that. And it's this almost kind of like backwards storytelling where they're just setting up all of these things
you mean
that don't pay off until the end. Yeah, I guess foreshadowing is the way it's not new or clever. It just felt new and clever in this context, I guess.
Well executed.
Yeah.
It was some kind of 4-way.
So it's like, if there's a word for that. Yeah.
If you could shadow it before it happened.
What would you call that?
But
somebody should invent a word for that.
I love the way that they set it up to, like, at the end of the conversation with Verso, like what leads into CL approaching Eskia is painted Verso says, there's a creature that Verso painted into his canvas that always helps people when they become consumed by their dark thoughts. And so, and she says, like, oh, you mean, but doesn't act. And then she approaches him, and she asks how he saved her, because she was out in the middle, and he said that he heard her tears, and she asks, from so far away, and he said, I heard you, so I came. And like, I just love, like, it's such an extra, like, endearing moment for Eskia. Like, he's always been, just this lovable thing, but now it's like, oh, like, we see childhood Versos, like, this is his security blanket. It's his little stuffy that it's like, when things are hard, when, he's scared or alone or anything like that, that's what makes him feel better. And that's what he painted into his canvas. It hears his tears, and, it comes to him when he needs it. And so, I love that, it's that way even in the canvas, that CL experienced that. And after she thanks him, he says, tears again. You sure do like to cry. And like, he's just like, he's constantly like making everybody feel good about things, like, and then, yeah, at the end of it also, he said that she was looking for someone and asks if she found them. And she says no, but hopefully soon. And he said, he goes, yeah, I get sad too when I lose my stones, but I always find them again. You will find them again too. And it's just...
He's adorable.
He's
every word out of his mouth. Well, I love that he said that I heard your tears, not I heard you crying. There's something extra endearing about that. That's like, he sensed the sadness. He didn't just like hear someone crying. It's like he sensed the sadness in CL and went to her aid. He heard her tears. I love that.
And I don't know if this is intentional, but Pierre translates to stone. And so maybe a coincidence, but that's kind of lovely.
Yeah. I didn't know that. Well, because, Pierre is like the French approximation of Peter, which is...
or Peter,
biblical. That's for,
right.
Stone. And, he's like the rock of the church in the Bible. So, yeah.
Yep. That's right. Eric knows his biblical allegories.
Bible. I did it. Yeah.
You got there. Yeah. All right. So let's transition to theme and story. This game did a lot of fascinating and subversive things. What was your favorite?
I mean, killing Gustav was fantastic.
I don't know if I'd call it fantastic. It was a fantastic subversion, but it did feel good.
Fantastic subversion. I mean, that and just the 3-act structure of, I don't know, just keeps.
It was very well, and it was so irregularly paced that you never knew when it was going to happen. Or for me, it was like, because of the pacing of the acts, it's like you thought that the Golden Fleece was getting to the monolith, and so when you get in the monolith, you're like, I don't know what the climax is anymore. The climax was supposed to be getting to the monolith, but it's not. So what is the climax? And so, like, yeah, it's like I never knew where to look for the structure of the story to make sense to me. I love that.
I think that, and it's not like a specific moment, but I think the general concept of like this game starting as one thing and then changing a couple of times while I was playing in completely unexpected ways, that was like the main thing that like surprised and shocked me about this game, is that it just kept being different from what I thought it was going to be. I was thinking like JRPG, group of teenage friends go off and use the power of friendship to kill God. That's like kind of what I was expecting. And that it starts that way and you kind of think that you're doing that, but then you get to that juncture point with Gustav and then it changes. And then you get to the end of Act 2 again and it just changes, where everything that you think you understand about the story just changes several times throughout the length of this game in completely unexpected ways. And I think that like that is such an interesting, it's a story structure that I haven't really experienced before. And I really enjoyed it. And particularly at the end of Act 2, when you find out that everything is a painting, was just a twist that I completely did not see coming and left me gobsmacked. Like I was so unprepared for that.
I mean, just in that same realm of just how, with so many crazy left turns, that the story as a whole still makes sense and is still very cohesive from start to finish. There's not, like, I've been having trouble finding out like unanswered questions or just loose strings, and they do a really good job of just buttoning a lot of things up without much hand waving.
It's like season 1 of Fringe, airtight.
Yeah.
I went back to look for plot holes. Yeah. It turns out airtight.
Airtight.
Yeah, so I explored this a little bit. It turns out that there are some more common differences in French storytelling than we're used to in the United States. So ellipsis over exposition, this is more common, where in French storytelling, they are more okay with ambiguity and realism over, in Hollywood, they prefer more explicit causality and clarity. And so I think that's what was making me deeply uncomfortable in this story, is their preference over ambiguity in motivation and in symbolism. So we just got off of like Death Stranding and The Last of Us and what is some other stuff we got, but basically
Spider-Man.
Yeah, so whenever we talked about those stuff, it's like I always could, with enough effort, know exactly what was happening. The character motivations, if you thought about it long enough, there was always something specific that they were thinking or feeling, or their motivations were clear. And the goals, there was always a specific goal in mind. Whereas here, it's like there were times where if I thought about any given act or character long enough, I felt like it was ambiguous and I couldn't always pin it down, and it was making me uncomfortable, and I didn't like swimming in ambiguity, and I didn't know if it was me or the story. And it turns out it's just French storytelling. You're supposed to kind of insert your own thoughts and feelings into what the characters are feeling and derive you're supposed to explore your own thoughts and feelings with the characters. I didn't understand that up until I was figuring out what French storytelling was. And then they in French storytelling, they like tragic irony and they like ambiguous endings more. We do have that in American storytelling, but here they have both endings in this are ambiguous and open-ended and tragic. and they like fatalism, disillusioned endings. So that's kind of birthed out of French New Wave. Whereas in Hollywood, they like restorative arcs, they like closure. So that kind of explains why it feels tragic and gross in this, but I liked it.
Yeah, it's very different in that way. At the end, you don't really feel a sense of closure. You feel a sense of like, oh man, it's just bad either way. Like, and it's a kind of a different ending than I'm used to. It's not typical Western endings where usually things are kind of at least somewhat wrapped up, and you have some kind of understanding about what just happened, or maybe a little bit of what comes next. But this one, it just kind of was like, all right, here you go. They're both bad.
It's in a way, like, I think the best way I've seen these endings described is somebody was like, you either get to choose a beautiful lie or a terrible truth.
Yep.
Yeah. And, there's plenty of French New Wave influence in American cinema, but and so we're still accustomed to seeing tragic endings, but I guess French cinema and storytelling is more replete with these dark storytelling, because French storytelling just prefers realism, and realism is just tragic, and it's uncomfortable. And I really like, Lundy, how you put that, is the truth is uncomfortable, and we live in lies to make us, because we don't want to face reality.
Yeah, I think
that's what the
Maiel
thing was. No, go on.
Yeah, no, like, I think that, you kind of bring up a good point with Hollywood and like because I feel like a lot of, when you think of genres of storytelling, one of the ones that's kind of become a lost art is the tragedy. Greek tragedy was a big thing, in ancient Greece. Shakespeare wrote tragedies. You don't really see tragedies written anymore, in today's storytelling. And when they are, they're the kind of tragedy that leaves you kind of like, they put a hopeful spin on it at the end, where it's like, oh, this ends really sad, but you leave fulfilled still, like it's this warm fuzzy feeling, and it's like, that's not really a tragedy though, and so I think that this game kind of reintroduces it, where it's like, this is what tragedy is supposed to be. Like, it kind of leaves you feeling icky and down a little bit, It's just kind of what it is.
Yeah, I think the last movie I remember seeing that way was Friday Night Lights. I'm pretty sure maybe Lundy is the only one that besides me that I've seen it. If I had to take a guess. But just I watched it in theaters and I left just gobsmacked, because it is every sports movie, I think pretty much ever, has been like, oh, these underdogs are going to overcome it and they win it all. And Friday Night Lights is the underdogs come in and they do great, and they come up a little bit short and end up losing at the end. And the movie just ends. Like, there's no positive spin on it. Yeah,
I'm not going to watch it now.
It's like a 25-year-old movie. But it's just one of those, like, oh, like, that was not expected at all. But it's reality. Like, it's based on a true story. Like, that's what happened, and that's life. Like, sometimes you do come up short. And we talked about it in our last episode, but just the endings in this game, of just a lot of it is rooted in reality. Like, everything has its price. And I think that's why these endings are so visceral in this game, has such a big payoff, is because there is a sense of reality baked into it. It's not all, rainbows and butterflies endings, which I love.
Yeah. And Hollywood, like, it's not only rainbows and butterflies, it's also just like, we like our heroes to be aspirational. And so, yes, it's like we polish them, but it's also because we want to work towards whatever ending. We want to believe that there's a redemptive quality to heroes, so that we can work towards it ourselves and see ourselves in those heroes. Whereas in French New Wave. They're like, you know what? They're shitty people or they have shitty lives, and we just want to admit it.
Here's a movie about it. Now deal with it.
French New Wave.
Maybe it was inspired by it. I don't know. I know that I think I've heard Glenn Howerton from It's Always Sunny. He talks about French New Wave a lot, and so maybe he was inspired to just write reality into that show. He's also very pretentious because he was classically trained
guy. Yeah,
he's a Juilliard guy. Yeah,
he's a golden god.
Golden god. Okay, so another thing about French storytelling is they are more comfortable with multiple protagonists, and that actually lends itself to JRPGs very well. So a good meshing of genres.
You got a whole party of them. Yeah. Who's the protagonist? Yeah. Take your pick. All of them. Sure, why not?
Who do you want to be the protagonist?
Minoko.
So it often features multiple protagonists and shifts focus between characters to explore events from different viewpoints. This offers more complex, multifaceted look at human relationships and motivations, whereas in the US and Hollywood typically relies on a singular protagonist or a clear dual protagonist structure like a buddy movie or romance to carry the story. This creates a more focused and linear narrative.
Well, and what I like about Expedition 33 is they start you off thinking, they know that a large part of the people who play this game are going to be Western audiences who are used to the typical, solo protagonist situation. And so they start the game off with Gustav, your protagonist. And then at the end of Act 3, or at the end of Act 1, they kill him. He's gone. And then that's when they start to bring in this multiple protagonist thing where it's sort of Verso, arguably Maiel, but then also even Lune and Ciel make compelling arguments for having their own kind of unique perspective on the story. And I think that they're more like secondary. What's the word? Not the protagonist, but like a secondary protagonist.
Deuterogonists.
Deuterogonists. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah. So I think they probably fill that role a little bit more. But I like that they start you thinking it's going to be a typical experience protagonist, like with the one protagonist like we're used to, and then it just ends up not being that way.
Mm-hmm. All right. Next question: how did the setting of Belle Epoque Paris or Lumiere elevate the theme of the story? Because this is the romantic period of idealistic Paris during the late 1800s to early 1900s Paris, France, where it was aspirational, it was full of optimism, it was right before the war, and they were just brimming with technological advances, and they were coming together civically and it was so. As far as this romantic period, how does that lend itself to telling this story at this time?
Well, I think that France in general, French culture in general, but particularly this kind of time period, is known for its focus on artists and art and
yes.
artistic innovation. And the story is hugely impacted by painting in particular, but art as a way of expression in general. And so I think that picking this time period makes a lot of sense because it's a big time of an artistic boom almost, where there's this overflow of creativity and new ways of expressing yourself artistically in this kind of time period. And so setting it there and then having such a big focus on classic French art and painting and all of those elements, it's I don't know where else they could have said it and had it impacted the same way. I think it needed to be in this time frame for to really sell the themes that they were going for.
Yeah, the Beaux Arts or the fine arts movement, Art Nouveau, art was an institution in the Belle Epoque period, and it was and Art Deco, and it was institutionally exported from France, and so it was controlled as an institution, and because of that, the whole what's their family name,
Cassandra.
Desandra family. Like, not a single family per se would have controlled the art scene, but an institution controlling the art scene in France, that actually kind of made sense in Belle Epoque time period in France, such that there was an institution controlling the scene and determining what was in vogue and what was being exported and what was determining like the culture of the scene. Yeah, and also there was just this optimism and ornament, and it was right before the World War I, where it was all about to be erased, and so I feel like maybe that lends itself to the Gommage, where it was all about to fade away. But yeah, where I do like what Eric was saying, where art kind of led the culture, because we were able to, or France was able to be led by culture and intellectualism before war kind of set in and kind of destroyed that movement for a while. I don't know, and I felt like maybe you kind of had to lean into the Belle Epoque time period, because if you're doing a fantasy genre, you had to do it before screens, you had to do it before technology. Otherwise, you kind of have to push into like an urban fantasy genre. And I don't know.
Yeah, getting some like cyberpunk, steampunk kind of like, I feel like Final Fantasy VII does that pretty well. Like people are still running around using swords and magic, but it's a lot of technology as well. But it's its own kind of flavor of things. So I'm glad that they went more kind of a not typical fantasy, but like old world-ish fantasy without.
It sounded like they had considered Victorian steampunk, and then they decided to do this instead, which I really like. This is unique. Steampunk's been overplayed. This is wholly unique. Okay, so this is a more interesting question. What makes this story uniquely French and only possible to be told in France as a setting?
Well, the outfits with baguettes on the back.
Yeah, I was saying, it's the baguettes. It's always been the baguettes.
that's the way how you know it's French. 100% baguettes. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to fight mimes in China.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a really good point, Tucker. You're not going to fight mimes in China.
Like, I remember talking about The Last of Us and how, if you remember the backdrop to that game, they laid out a lot of American. The backdrop to that game, they used a lot of American institutions and symbolism. And I felt like the reason he was doing that is because he wanted to portray that this is a story that could only be told in America, because it was uniquely American to have a story where we have so much violence that was just like embedded in our culture, and violence was a necessary catalyst to the story. And so what is it that is French that is necessary to make this story work?
I think touched on it a little bit earlier, is this in like huge emphasis on art. And I mean, there's a lot of really artistic areas of the world, but I feel like you think about fine art and a lot of people think about France, and it's just correlated in your minds. And so I think that having a huge focus on painting and art is something that does feel uniquely French. I think that's probably a big part of it.
Well, so one thing I remember feeling distinctly odd about this story that when I first started playing it was that they all wanted to come together to save their city of Lumiere. And I was like, that would not fly in America. We are too individualistic, right? And maybe you could harken back to the time of World War I or World War II, a time that we're not familiar with personally, but that was when we had moral imperative and clarity around an objective of coming together to quell an existential threat. And so we were united, and we believed in collectivism and collective action. And since then, there was the Great Depression and fracturing of belief and in institutions and the government. And then we also had the Vietnam War, which was highly political, and we lost faith in our government since then. Then we had the Iraq War and Afghanistan and all that stuff, such that we have since then become such an individualistic country that we no longer, I believe, can come together to save each other. And so this, I feel like France still believes in a collective action to save each other. There is universalism and a concept known as laïcité. And laïcité is identity is citizen first, and laïcité is religion and particularisms are kept private, and collective destiny and civic rights are read as natural. So there's embedded in their state identity that you have to focus. How do I word this? The state is first. You have to come together to protect the state, and that is a civic responsibility. And I don't feel like we have that in the United States anymore. It's everyone else be damned, I will get my own, right?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, you find pockets of people trying to strive for bigger things, but on a whole, we don't see that nearly as much as we used to in the States.
Yeah. I think there was a brief time where, it was that, like, in the aftermath of 9/11, I think that there was a very strong sense of unity across the country. That
until we found out we were lied to.
Right. Well, yeah. Like, I mean, we
it was an inside job.
It was just we're using the government used it as an excuse to do other things, and like that. Obviously, then everybody was like, "Well, come on, man! Like, you just got our trust back, and you're going to do this." And so it is kind of a. I think that the only way you could really tell that kind of story with that kind of collective unity and striving towards a goal in American culture, the only way you can tell that story is if it's a sports story.
We
like
do romanticize the heck out of sports.
Yeah, I mean, you watch the Super Bowl, like the Super Bowl. I firmly believe this, and some people laugh until I explain my thinking. Super Bowl Sunday is a national holiday. Because it happens the same time every year. People gather with friends and family. There are specific foods that you only eat during that event. Like it's this thing that everybody does, even if they're not an active practicing person where they're, watching football every Sunday. They show up for this one thing because, it's a family gathering. Like we're getting together as friends and family. Yes, I will participate. Like, it's the
like
Super
the
Bowl.
Christmas and Easter Catholics.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm not a football guy. I just watch the Super Bowl.
100%. It's like the Super Bowl is an American holiday, because it's something that people look forward to. There are like, they even, commercialize it with like ad campaigns are centered around it. Like, we treat it like we treat most other holidays. Sports are so ingrained in American culture. And so people really, they are very individualistic until they all get in an arena and it's time to put on the same colors and the same logos, and cheer for all the same guys, and then if they win, they hold a parade in their city and everybody shows up and is, going crazy. And like it, I think that's the only way that we still know how to do that as far as our storytelling goes, is it's like, well, if we want people to believe that Americans can rally together and, find commonality, make it sports.
Yeah. So the next Clair Obscur game is going to be set in America, and it'll be a remake of Remember the Titans. Yeah.
Oh, I would play the hell out of that. Just Clair Obscur, but Madden.
Remember the Titans.
That would be a crossover that I would absolutely play.
Tucker would play it if it was the 2K games. You used to play those 2K basketball games, right?
Well, yeah. If you like basketball, that's what you play.
Yeah. Clair Obscur 2K.
They've really gone down the drain since, like, I think 2K16.
Have you heard the their pitch for a college basketball thing?
Yeah.
It was unimpressive. And now it even sounds like EA's probably not going to do their college basketball game, and I'm devastated by it. But
is 2K not EA? Oh.
Nope. They are competitors. And
yes, I did know that.
Yeah.
It's weird because like Madden took off in the football world and that became the standard, but then 2K and basketball took off and that became the standard. And they just kind of
I don't know why I was thinking that they were both published by EA, but that's right. EA is the Madden, and then 2K is basketball and FIFA, right? Or is FIFA EA as well?
FIFA's EA. EA used to be in the NBA game as well. Theirs was NBA Live, and 2K smoked that one, and so much that EA stopped making NBA Live.
Never mind, we give up.
So yeah, I do miss the days when there were multiple sports games from multiple studios instead of this studio. You know, EA makes football, and you know, football no matter what continent you're on. Then 2K makes basketball, and who's the I forget the studio, but for Sony, the MLB, the show.
Oh yeah.
So we get baseball there, and
I have never liked sports games, so not my jam.
Without the competition, it's just becoming just reskin the next year and updating stats.
I will say that I have really, really enjoyed the return of the college football games, because you know, when they stopped back in 2014, we'll get back on topic in just a second. I just have to get this thought out.
You can see Shan's eyes glazing over. He's looking at his notes like when we're going to be done talking about this.
But the episode.
Yeah, the college football games ended in 2014 due to all sorts of legal stuff. And so I just remember I was like, well, I'll just get Madden because that's basically just a reskin, but with like professional uniforms and stuff. And I got the next year's Madden game, and I was like, this game sucks. Like, this is not even close to college football. Like, these, like, and it turns out they were completely separate teams that just made football games, both under the EA banner, but they didn't use very many of the same mechanics, and like just had different. I don't know. I hated the Madden game. Like, growing up playing NCAA, when it just then pretty much that exclusively. Started playing Madden, and I was like, I hate this. And then college football came back, and it wasn't perfect, but it was good. It was very good. Anyway, off the soapbox.
All right, so back to the thing I was trying to ask, which is why could this only be told in France and couldn't be told in the United States? Another string that I was pulling at before we jumped on this was I thought it was fascinating. In France, it turns out that, well, it's interesting. In America, we sort of lost our collectivism as we started adopting neoliberalism. So as we started adopting individual rights during this civic, as we started gaining civic rights during the 60s and 70s, we started becoming more individualistic, and but in France they realized, or it's actually kind of different, right? Like they realized that their liberalism actually is tied intrinsically to their love of state, or so they actually love their centralized government more. And they realize it's tied to their liberalism. So the more individual rights they have, the more that they love their state. Whereas the more liberalism we have here, the more we hate our state because we want more of those rights, and we see that as diametrically opposed to big government. And so that's one reason why that story couldn't have been told here. I
would have felt
like
just a little disingenuous, and yeah.
I mean, it's the same reason that, you know, we have so many superhero stories told here, because, you know, America's DNA, our national story is vigilantism. You know, it's fighting against the power, you know, and fighting outside the law, you know, just, you know, fighting for justice outside the bounds of what's considered legal. And so, you know, that's, I think,
how our country was formed.
Acts of it, you know, the Boston Tea Party was a vigilante act. And so, of course, we love vigilante stories and masked hooligans running around dressed as different animals.
Yeah, like
all the animals.
We naturally root for the stories in America where you turn against the government, is the point that I'm trying to make. Whereas Clair Obscur, they naturally romanticize the government. You know, Emma is working for the centralized power, and they're trying to protect their government, and they at no point out that their system is flawed in any way. They have a civic responsibility to protect Lumiere and protect it with their lives. And that just would have felt kind of out of place here in America. Like, one of the greatest stories in MCU for Captain America is when he decides to go against the government in Civil War, right? Like, yeah, the guy whose entire identity is the government, he decides to go against the government. And you're like, yeah, now I finally get this guy.
Oh, there he is. Yeah, we don't have to get too far on it, because I know that Lundy and I will take a whole episode's worth just talking about Winter Soldier and Civil War and how awesome. But like the Captain America
Winter
trilogy,
Soldier is the one I was talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So I knew. Yeah. Lundy and I knew that that's what you meant. But Winter Soldier is one of the best movies in the MCU, and Captain America probably has the best trilogy in the MCU. Just good stuff.
He just does.
Easy.
Yeah. Okay. And then another point is art in France is part of their civic identity. We kind of touched on that already. We definitely did. In America, we don't really, it's not embedded in our identity to have that as a cornerstone of who we are. And then in France, they also use monuments as part of their identity to harken back. Like, they use it to pay homage to memories of who they were. And we do have monuments of our history, but it's here it feels like the gommage and erasing that is a part of a tragedy to them, whereas here destroying and rebuilding is part of a healthy process to, like, our capitalistic ritual. And so the gommage is not really as tragic, wouldn't have been as tragic here in our culture as it would have been in France's culture. All right, so all of that esoteric aside, who was your favorite character? Let's push that aside. Let's just get into the fun stuff.
Why would you hang on? Let me Gustav, Esquier, everybody else, and Esquier again.
So it's really Esquier or Gustav. That's the real question.
Well, they're so good for different reasons. I think Esquier made me smile the most by like a mile. I felt really endeared by his conversations the most, but I feel like
his nonsense inspired me greatly.
His nonsense inspired me, but I feel like towards the end, I think that Renoir was the character that I found the most interesting. I was just sucked in by his gravitas and by just his ideology and way of thinking and trying to help his family and failing in some ways and succeeding in others. And so I think that, I don't know if he's my favorite, but by the end of the story, he's the character that I found the most interesting.
Yeah, I think it's just Esquier.
Yeah. Who else could it be? Maybe Minoko. Like, he's also very charming. I like the last conversation that he and Verso have where they have like a really like heartfelt moment, and then they undercut it with like, all right, shut up and let's cuddle now. And then Verso goes, little spoon? And then it just cuts away. I think I just love like Verso and Minoko's relationship. So yeah.
All right. Which story beat hit you the hardest? I think it's Gustav's death. No?
Yeah, the end of Act 2 and 3. I think that Gustav's death shocked me. But I think the one that like blew my mind open and just be like, what is this game? Is when you found out that at the end of Act 2 where everything was a painting and the world wasn't what you thought it was. Oh, specifically the part where when you beat the paintress and you come back to Lumiere and everyone's happy, and then that shockwave comes out from the monolith and everybody gamages. Everybody dies. And it was at that point where I realized where it's like, oh, I think we might have just killed the only thing protecting us. And that specifically that moment probably was the moment that I was like, what is happening?
Okay.
What about you guys?
Yeah.
So one of the things that has stuck with me, and I don't know if you can technically classify it as a story beat, but just painted Verso talking to the last piece of Verso's soul, of just asking if he's tired. Like that, for some reason, has just really stuck with me. Of just like, yeah, me too. And like, it's okay to stop painting. Yeah, it was rough. And that, and then CL's story of going out and swimming. Those are the two that have just been on my mind a lot.
Okay. What was your favorite song?
It's really hard to top Renoir's battle theme. That song kicks so much ass. It's so good. I also really like Minoko's theme, though. Those are probably my two favorites.
Gypsy jazz, is that what we called it?
The gypsy jazz, and then it just goes crazy with the saxophone. That one's also really good.
That's hard to,
I think that was the first song, like, in my playthrough where I, like, the battle started and the song started happening, and I just, like, stopped the game, and I was like, what is this delicious thing happening to my ears right now? But then you keep going on the game and you get Renoir's battle theme and you're like, oh man, the soundtrack is not messing around.
It might be Minoko's theme, but what's the song that plays when you get into Act 3 and you get back to Tainted Lumiere? And it just like it's like all the songs, it's a medley, but it rocks so incredibly hard. I don't know, but that song goes hard.
Yeah.
Okay. Which ending did you choose first?
I chose Verso's ending first just because he was the character that I had leveled up the most, and I was a noob and didn't know how to use Maiel, and so I was like, that's going to be really hard if I try to use her against this beefed up Verso that I built. That was my whole decision-making process.
I had the exact same process, but for Maiel. Because I didn't use Verso, and I just beat the crap out of Maiel. I'm like, if this is going to be like a mirror battle, I'm going to lose to Maiel. I better choose Maiel.
Okay, so
I did
2
the same
versus
as Tucker.
2. But which ending was correct?
Verso.
It's Verso, right?
That's the one that made me feel better. Yeah,
I'm really 50-50 on it still.
Tucker's a fence sitter.
I don't think that there is a correct ending. You know,
that's true. Let's rephrase it. Which was the ending that didn't hurt your heart as much? I feel like Verso's ending had an underlying theme of hopefulness, where Maiel's ending just made me feel gross.
Verso's ending leads to healing, and Maiel is just pure denial.
Play it 2 more times, and then because it like
Shannon and I have only played it once, so
because the third playthrough, that's where I'm like, oh man, like I'm actually very torn here because like we talked offline, Shan. Like,
okay, explain me away from my conclusion. Open discussion. Explain me away.
So I think at the surface, but then as other playthroughs, you start to understand the characters more and more, and then you realize like, okay, these guys have their own world. Like, yes, you are going out and healing, but this is also a good world. They deserve to live as well, and again, it's not going to be perfect, just like Verso's ending isn't perfect. But there's also this aspect of it of how is Maiel's ending different than any other person's imagination? Is she can just manifest her imagination.
There's no free will.
Well, and that's my thing. Is it's
no free will either.
Yeah, but it's not imagination. They're real beings. Like that's I agree with you up to a point, Tucker, where it says that these are, real people. They have real motivations and real lives, and you want to see that continue, but it doesn't continue when Maiel takes over. It's a fate worse than death, maybe.
The question I think that like complicates that a little bit is, are they aware that they've lost that? Because there is a little bit, because when, like, if they're not aware, like, they're not necessarily suffering, it's still wrong. Like, that doesn't change.
Verso is definitely suffering.
But, yeah, Verso's definitely.
But everyone else might not be.
Everyone else might not be. And if you look at their reactions when you choose Verso's ending, Minoko and Eskie kind of just, like, they come in and they're like, yeah, we kind of knew what your intentions were this whole time. But Ciel and Lune have very, like, Ciel kind of comes in and she's got that understanding, but at the same time, like, as they kind of reach, she kind of pulls back where she's like, I know, but I still don't think I can accept this or forgive you, And then Lune is just defiant. She doesn't say anything, and in fact just sits down, like, in the middle of the portal instead of coming in, just sits down, which kind of harkens back to
staring him down the whole time too. She's just glaring at him like, I can't believe you did this.
Yeah, you lied to us again. And it kind of harkens back as well to her conversation with Gustav, where she says, as long as there is one of us still standing, then the expedition goes on, and like, we have hope and we can continue. And she is literally the last expeditioner, and she sits down. She's no longer standing. It's like, we can't win anymore. And like, it's kind of her like, just, okay, fine, but I'm not, like, she's pissed. And, so you see these people, and it's like, if they're given a choice, they want to live. How much do they know of what they've lost when they do live in Maiel's ending? I don't think they're aware that they've lost anything. But, these are living beings with the right to self-determination. And Verso decides that he is tired of living and is going to take everybody else with him.
Yeah, I mean, that's a compelling argument because I feel like Verso is definitely being controlled and puppeted. Like, painted Verso is definitely being controlled and puppeted by Maiel. Is everyone else? Maybe. I don't know. It seems that way, but it also isn't explicitly stated. And so I don't know. I think that, like, it's still... and both endings have, like, things that morally make you feel like, ooh, I didn't like that. But I feel like what I do, like, how it makes me feel is it just, like, in my gut. When I did Maiel's ending first, and immediately was like, oh, I hated that. Like, and I reloaded a save and I did Verso's ending. And so it's like, I have to go with, like, what it made my gut feel. Maiel's ending made me feel gross and like, oh, I didn't like that. And then Verso's ending made me sad but hopeful. And so I think that and at the cost of, thousands of lives is a horrible price to pay. But that, like, as far as, like, from a story perspective, as far as a narrative, that's what felt most satisfying to me.
Well, like with Maiel, like, I mean, I get her point. She doesn't have really a life outside of this painting. Like, this painting has given her a life that was taken from her. By her mistake and her naivety, but Like, Maiel is who Alicia could have been, arguably should have been, and she now gets a second chance at living that life.
I think one thing that also helps relate to Maiel, to Tucker's point of, go back and play it again, is once you get to that third act, that first time you're usually like, I'm just going to ride as much of this momentum and I'm going to go straight to the end. But the more times you play through, the more you go and you delay that ending. You delay that, and you spend more time exploring the canvas, and you spend more time in that world. And that's what Maiel's desire is. She wants to spend more time there. You're putting off getting to the end of this story because you don't want it to end. The same way that Maiel wants to continue to be in this canvas, be in this world, experience what it has to offer. So the player, on your second playthrough, you actually start to do that more, where you're like, oh, I already know the story. I'm going to do all of this other stuff, and I'm going to explore every single nook and cranny and delay having to leave this for as long as I possibly can. And I think that's again, Maiel is wrong. She is not, what she does is terrible, and there's no excusing that, but it is, I think, relatable.
Yeah, I hadn't considered that. I love the idea. I still feel better about Verso's ending, but I love the point that you made there. I love the idea of using gameplay as a way to convey that particular part of narrative, to be like, here's this world, because it's almost like we're peering into this painting. This is something that the developers, as painters, have created this world for us to sit in and experience with these characters. And the more time we get to sit in it, but when it's done, then the painting is erased and it kind of dies. And if we want to go back to that painting, we have to start it over again or whatever. And so I hadn't considered that perspective of looking at this game as a painting, and as the developers as painters, similar to how the painters in this game work, where they've created this world and you get to go jump into this world and to enter the painting and experience it kind of alongside Maiel and fall in love with it. And that's what makes it heartbreaking when it's done and it gets taken away. That's beautiful. I love that. I hadn't considered that.
So I really don't like Maiel's ending.
Same.
it is incredibly gross. She is she has those cosmic eyes while she is puppeting Verso, and she's crying while she does it. So she doesn't even like what she's doing, but she knows that he won't do it of his own volition. And that makes her weep because he doesn't want to be there. He'd rather be dead. And while she's wearing that elegant, Alicia garb, you see that most of the other people, I don't think Gustav and Sophia are wearing it, but most of the other people of her expedition are also wearing that clothing. That to me denotes that they are also being controlled by her. I don't think they are also there of their own volition. And they, by extension, would know that Verso is also being controlled, and I think they would feel gross knowing that Verso is being controlled and wouldn't want to be there and watch him be controlled. And so she's like, here, I want everybody to come here and pretend that everything is A-okay. And I think they would feel gross about that. And she's like, no, let's all just sing Kumbaya. And so I think just the whole thing is fake. And so if the whole thing's fake and nobody is there and of their own volition, if nobody has free will, then what is the point of it? What's the point of being there? And if she's in denial, she needs to go back to reality. You can't just avoid reality your entire life. You have to face it, and it sucks. I get that, and I know that her life sucks, but you can't run away from it forever. That's just not how life works. Anyway, go on, Lundy. I want to hear.
You leave the painting and then you just hide it again, because this time I definitely won't find it. Yeah.
A counterpoint to the attire, because it is an opera house, they could all just be wearing formal attire, because you wear formal attire when you go to a formal performance like that.
But not all of them are wearing it.
But they're all wearing something formal.
but
there's
the
nobody
exact
just
same clothing as her.
That's the style.
It's a
maybe
small studio, Shan.
yeah,
they had a limited
It's
budget.
pretty creepy. It's pretty, but the point is that it's uncanny and it's creepy to be the exact clothing as her. It could have been any other clothing. They did it on purpose. It was a character-driven decision.
Like I agree that she's controlling everyone, but I just did not interpret it that way at all from the clothing. I just thought it's like,
did anybody else feel creepy seeing them wear the same clothing?
Didn't even register.
I was gonna say I didn't notice that they were all wearing the same clothing, but I noticed that everything looked very uniform and like clean and kind of sterile, you know.
It was the sterility. That's a good word for it.
And to me, I just assumed, I was like, yeah, they're just going to the theater. You dress nice, you clean up, and so,
But they all know he's being controlled.
Do they?
Would they really want to see Verso being controlled? Would they all just be okay with that?
I mean, they weren't there when they had their fight. They don't know necessarily, like...
They don't see him fighting it. They don't see her crying about it.
Probably not. I mean, they probably are being controlled.
This is a lot of denial to me,
there's,
but okay.
Like, I mean, it's left open to interpretation. I think there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of suppositions that are being made either way, because it's not explicitly stated. It is, it's left ambiguous, for each person to determine for themselves, kind of how they read into it, like, which is the intent of the developers. Like, I don't, like the writers, they don't, they've said there isn't a right or wrong answer. Like, there is no canonical ending. They actually really like going into the forums to read how everybody interpreted it and see how they fight over it. Like, the writers love seeing that reaction, like, and that's what they wanted.
I think when she became the paintress and she took over for the little boy, I think she wanted to control the world, and such that there would be no variables and no reality that could force her out of this world. Yeah. She didn't want to she didn't want to create any scenario by which she could get kicked out again. And it created an idyllic Lumiere for herself, and it became creepy to me.
So, question: what prevents her from doing that with another canvas in Verso's ending?
I don't follow how this. Okay, so what change?
She paints her own canvas. She paints her own canvas that she can then, as a paintress herself, her family all knows how to do this. Mm-hmm. She doesn't need Verso's canvas to be able to create her own.
Because she wants Verso's canvas to be with Verso.
Right. But if she wants to escape reality, and live there forever, she can paint her own world and go disappear into it. Verso acknowledges that as he's, after he beats her, and like, you can paint anything you want. She can go create her own canvas, because she says, as she's like fading, she's like, no, I don't have a life out there. Like, I want to stay here. Her main motivation is because it's, the last piece of Verso's soul.
Right.
But if she really is that miserable, like, there's no guarantee that she's going to heal the right way. She can always go paint any other canvas and escape into it instead of dealing with her problems.
Yeah, she totally could.
Yeah, she can. So is this destroying my point, or is this just adding?
No, it's just a question.
Oh, okay. So this is just an additive question.
Yeah, it's just like, going on, because it's like, do we, like, I think that, because
I think they need to lock her up.
Yeah, because I think everybody agrees.
They need to hide her next to the other painting where Eileen will never find it. Yeah.
I think that everybody can agree that what Maiel does in her ending is wrong. Like, it's morally wrong what she does. Whether she's controlling one person or all of them, doesn't matter. It's objectively wrong and evil.
The only other point I was going to make, and you're all going to hate me for it, is that the people in the painting aren't real. And I'm okay with them being erased because they're not real. But that's very controversial.
Disagree.
That's
so,
a hard.
That was
I
that
don't
was
know.
my first playthrough. Like, even though I chose Maiel because of the combat, like, I morally was very much so on the side of Verso. Subsequent playthroughs are where it really started to, like, oh, maybe I missed some things. Of just my gut kind of started to turn more in the middle of it. Because, yeah, it's just like, okay, they're not real. Like, go deal with your outside problems. Like, go and grieve healthily.
Like, I wouldn't have any compunction with burning a book because there are characters inside of it.
Yeah, but the characters in the book aren't making choices on their own. They're making choices based on what's written.
I don't think that.
So so this is kind of this is a gray area. This is why this is so interesting. This is a gray area for me because it is all of these things just painted into a painting, but it's also not a regular painting where it's just things on a canvas. These are
it's still code. It's still deterministic.
Well,
but it's self-aware.
So the painters are in essence how I view them as gods. And if we think about it from a theological perspective, typical Christianity, God creates man, man lives on earth. And so in this situation, and they live in their own, we'll think of earth as a painting. God paints the earth and then paints people that live on it, and they run around and they make their own choices and they do their own thing. And so this to me feels really similar to that these painters are gods in that way, that they paint these canvases, they paint these real worlds, and then they fill them with beings. And so I don't know, because this is something that I don't really know the right answer to, because I want to feel like they're real sentient beings because they act and behave that way, but they also are just like creations in a painting. And so I might have to play the game a couple more times before I really come to a conclusion. I think that they're living
out the willpower of the person who created them, which in this point would be the paintress. So at that point, I don't think that they have their own soul or will. Well, I think they have the paintress's will.
They were painted by Verso.
To them. Okay, well then they have Verso's soul by extension. So I don't think I don't see them as literal beings.
I don't agree or disagree with you. I'm still figuring that one out.
No, it makes you question like what constitutes what constitutes a life, a sentient being.
Yeah, this game has made one of the most compelling story points for me to be like, what constitutes a life? There have been other games and stories and stuff where it's like artificial intelligence. No, it's a robot that doesn't have a life or a soul. Like,
what about Westworld?
I have never had any like part of my brain to be like, Android can think and feel. No, it can't. It's a robot. That's never been a thing for me. But like, I've never experienced a story that way. Now. But in this one, these characters, that has made a real argument for me to be like, created life, are these real? Like, this has been the first time where it's really made me think about it.
I'm going to have to send you guys a couple episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation to watch, because it's very much like this debate of like, what level of sentience and emotional capability determines whether somebody is alive or not, and a lot of the time it is around an android.
Data is not alive.
If you watch
it. I know.
Watch.
Lundy,
he's a robot.
Is AGI going to compel you towards, like, is AGI going to be a thing for you?
I'm very anti-development of AI because, we're
interesting.
Like, once we develop it, you can't put that genie back in the bottle, right? Once we create this where it does gain that level of sentience and that self-aware ability to make its own decisions regardless of, like any outside, you can't say like regardless of input, because that informs our decision making, right? Like each of us reacts differently based on the various inputs that we've had as we've grown up through life. It kind of comes back to somewhat of the rehearsal, what you were talking about, all of these inputs, like it is a combination of nature and nurture that informs all of us. And so, sure, there's going to be certain things that are programmed into it that gives, AI its own certain thing. But once we get it to that point where it's self-sustaining and completely sentient and completely, autonomous, like that then raises some very significant moral issues. Once it like,
no, it's not. It's not alive. Kill it. Doesn't matter.
Like, you know,
that's not a problem.
And these are debates that happen even in the fandom of, you know, like Star Wars, when they look at droids where they're like, they're sentient, they're capable of emotion. Like, you know, is this a living being? Like, you know, if it can think for itself and if it can feel for itself, is it okay just because it's different than you to impose your will upon it and count it as less than?
Yes.
It's not that it's different, it's that it's
kill
not
everyone
real.
That's different than you.
Well, see, and that's the thing, though. Like based on what are we defining that, like, you know, like, oh, I created this, therefore it's not real. Okay, but like, you create your children.
It's okay to show it naked because it ain't got no soul.
The Tim Robinson thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Another just in media is Alien Earth. I think I don't know if you guys have watched it. I know Shan has.
So great. I missed like 2 or 3 episodes.
Yeah. So I'm not spoiling anything, but the series starts off with this mega corporation has these terminal kids and transfers their consciousness into a android, and so it's okay. Are those living beings?
Yeah. Because they see, I love this show because it approaches it from so many different angles. It's like, what if they had a soul and then transferred it to a synthetic? What if it was fully synthetic? Like, they approach it from all different angles. I don't remember all the different angles, but it's very cool how they break that down and have that moral debate.
Trying to even debate and define what is a soul.
Mm-hmm. It's the most interesting I've ever had that broken down. But the answer is no.
They're friggin' robots.
Okay. You're right, guys.
Robot.
Blackest robot around.
I feel like
marketing's going to be a nightmare. All right. Did we do it? Anything else you want to share about this game?
I just love how much like
we got Lundy all heated up.
No, like these are like all debates that I've had with myself since I finished play. Like this kind of thing have been like, because I've done that too, where it's like, but they're just paintings, but they have free will, like they have emotion. But they can clearly convey that
at the end, so you can just gomage
like
them.
And just so like I've gone back and forth and flipped and flopped, and it's like one of those things because it like that's, you know, which shows how well it's written. The fact that they're like, we're intentionally leaving this ambiguous because we want people to debate this. Like they find joy in watching what each person came to their own conclusions about.
Okay, so Lundy, if I can successfully figure out all the variables such that we know for a fact that Alicia or Maiel is controlling them in her ending, can we gomage them?
I mean,
they have no free will, so we can take their lives again.
I mean, you know, it's genocide okay when everybody's like enslaved anyway? Like,
ooh.
Yeah, as long as they're robots.
You know, like
if they're robots, it's not genocide.
I'm gonna come off as like a real robot hating guy in this episode.
I mean,
Eric hates robots.
Yeah, Eric's gonna be first on AI's hit list.
I'm super anti-AI.
It's not enslavement if they're robots. It's just ownership.
So does that justify destruction of property?
Yeah, watch iRobot.
Yeah.
They're just a bunch of robots, so we can go ahead and bomb the facility, even though it's not our property.
Notice how we don't have to have any of these arguments about Verso's ending.
Well, I mean, I did raise the point of, you know, like, what's stopping Maiel from going and doing the same thing elsewhere?
I just...
Wait a minute, this is an argument about Verso's ending.
Yeah, this is, because Verso kills all of them.
Yeah.
Verso, yeah, he
kills
Verso genocides the whole place.
It's just Verso's ending is just not as complicated to me.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like, and this is the last thing I'll say about it, is I feel like Verso's ending feels more narratively satisfying because it feels like it's got some semblance of hopefulness to it. But I think that there are really solid arguments to be made for both sides that, you know.
Yeah. So let's play this out a little bit. So she's pushed out of the painting. optionally, she can run off and go paint a new world for herself. However, in that interim space, she can be forced to face reality for once, and so there is a space in which she is forced to heal, and maybe that forces her to come to reality and not jump into another painting, because in that other painting she won't have Verso, and that might be an integral variable that is forcing her to stay in this painting.
So, is it okay to force her to heal? And that's right, but when she's forcing her will on others, that's wrong.
Well, I think that you're not. So here's the thing: is you're not forcing Maiel to heal. Verso is forcing an opportunity for Maiel to heal if she chooses.
Right. Well,
to
I'm
do
just
so.
challenging the way that Shan worded that, because he said she can be forced to heal.
Yes, she can be forced to heal, because in that scenario, they're forcing two wills on each other, whereas in this, it's just forcing one will on one person who actually just needs to heal.
Right, but is forcing...
One is being forcing... Like, in that scenario...
I disagree with the verbiage. I don't think that she's being forced to heal. She's being forced into a situation where she can choose to heal if she wants to.
And that's better,
She always has that choice. She can leave the painting.
Yeah.
Like
she can just leave.
Yeah. I can just run.
Right. So in Maiel's scenario, she is forcing something on Verso, whereas in the other scenario, Verso is forcing something on her. So it's net neutral either way. Something is being forced on one person or the other. It's just but
in your logic, Shan, Verso's not a real person. And so,
so
it's actually not net neutral. So Maiel's ending, in your logic, is the right ending.
Ooh, you just got lawyered.
No. No. So because Verso, if he's forcing something on Maiel, but he's not a real person, then it actually doesn't matter if he's forcing something on someone, because a real person, it doesn't matter if he performs an action on someone, because a real person performing an action on someone doesn't matter.
So if she's not forcing,
whereas a real person forcing an action on somebody, I guess it doesn't matter.
A real person forcing action on nobody isn't hurting anybody.
Doesn't matter either. Yeah, so neither of these matter. Neither. The only thing that matters is that Maiel isn't facing reality.
It's all bad, and nothingness engulfs us all.
The only thing that matters is that Maiel needs to get back out of the painting. Because nobody is real and their souls don't matter.
I mean,
Shan's taking a hard stance on that, yeah.
And her family has the ability to pull her out of the canvas whenever they decide to. If we're going to go with the nobody's real argument, then Maiel's not hurting anybody by staying there.
I don't know that they can pull them out whenever, because we saw Renoir struggling to pull his wife out.
Right, but his wife was also she was the head of the Painters Guild. Maiel is still learning.
Okay.
I think that if Renoir and Eileen at full strength came into the painting, that they could probably pull Maiel out.
Okay.
And I don't feel any closer to one like resolution or the other. I feel like that's the cool thing about this game, is it tells a really complex story that I don't really know how to feel about it.
What I love about the way that they've written these endings and what they've said in interviews is basically it's like there is no right ending except for whichever one you individually feel like is right. Like, nobody's right and everybody's right. Like, it's just kind of one of those ambiguous things where they're like, we didn't write a correct ending. There is no correct ending. So which ending is right? Which one do you want to be right?
Denial versus healing. That's what I think matters.
Well, and who's to say it's not healing her? She's doing her own therapy.
You think living in denial is healing? Okay, sure.
She's getting that time spent that she didn't get.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that one. Reaching a little bit.
I mean, I'm just arguing for arguing's sake at this point, but
just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. That became very clear at some point. All right.
At a certain point, it's you don't really argue what you believe in. It's just fun to get Shan all flustered, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole point of these kinds of debates.
That's kind of what I'm doing too.
Yeah,
So.
like it's the whole point of ethics, you know, like discussions of ethics. Like if everybody's agreeing, then it's not productive.
It's not fun. Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us today. Please like, comment, subscribe. You can find us wherever you find podcasts. Listen to Eric's Indie Corners on, is it Mondays?
Monday.
Probably.
Yeah. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Outro. Bleepity doof, bleepity bloopity blow.